Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. This week we're visiting the area of Norfolk, and in particular we wanted to explore the remains of a late 12th century manor in England, which in itself is quite a rare thing. Obviously, in the area of Norfolk, you'll be blown away by the variety of castles, manor homes and stately buildings that are scattered around, but we think that it's worth to make the time to find this isolated gem shrouded in mystery. So why not join us whilst we explore the forgotten Weeting Castle? The castle here at Weeting is not actually a castle in the traditional sense, but more of a 12th century moated manor house built by the Plais family. The site was first occupied by a Saxon settlement in the late 10th or early 11th century, but around 1180 the Plais family constructed a fortified manor house, and about 70 years later they added a rectangular moat to enclose the site, which also was the first thing that we see after entering through the gates. The manor house was built by Hugh de Plais, a tenant of William de Warenne, the powerful Earl of Surrey. The design of the Outer Bailey is similar to de Warenne's fortress of Castle Acre, so it seems reasonable to assume that Hugh would copy the layout of his lord's great castle, or his own more restrained manor house. However, the similarities stop there, as de Warenne's castle was a genuine stronghold, whereas at Weeting Castle it would have realistically not been able to withstand an attack. Even the moat, which was an essential part of any castle defences, was added later in the 13th century, when the need for a defensive residence was no longer so great. The de Plais family owned Weeting Castle until the 14th century, and despite its name, they would never attempt to fortify it and turn it into a fortified residence. It is clear that the de Plais family did not intend to create a defensive fortress, but instead they wanted a statement to demonstrate their wealth and status. This large room that we're now in would have been the Great Hall. You can see the remnants of the stone foundations in this room, that they are very large, grand and of course tall and rectangular in shape. Inside you can only recreate with your imagination the dining experiences that they might have had. The walls warmly decorated in the finest tapestries, and the floors and walls painted with the family crest and some of the treasures that they would want to display. The timber roof was painted in white to counteract the large windows that would have surrounded the hall, flooding light in. The owners would have entertained their guests and also dealt with day-to-day business in the hall. Excavations have revealed a freestanding kitchen, shielded from view of visitors by a boundary wall. Separating the kitchen from the living area probably served two purposes. The sound and smell of food preparation would not disturb the family and their guests, and the risk of spreading fire could be minimalised. Of course, the downside was that the food might well be cold by the time it arrived at the Lord's table. Whilst at night everybody of lower status would bed down in the hall, the family would have their private quarters in a 3-storey chamber block just behind the Great Hall, and inside this interesting block. In this room was the vaulted ground floor storage room, and as you have a look around you can notice the brickwork for the vaulted ceiling where it had once been, and just above the mural fireplace on the first floor, giving indication that this was where the suite of private chambers would have been. In the 14th century, the castle would pass by marriage to the famous Howard family, the Earls of Norfolk. The Howards had other great houses and sadly let Weeting Castle decay and crumble. It was finally left abandoned around 1390. Nearby, the Church of St Mary the Virgin is one of around 130 round tower churches in the area of Norfolk. Its earliest elements date from around the 11th and 12th centuries, although there's no evidence that the church and castle were actually connected. But when the church is open, it's a great place to visit at the same time of the castle and experience just how impressive and atmospheric the church is. Walking around the outside of the building, it's amazing to be able to see the height of the tower block and private apartments, and amazingly still standing well considering how out in the elements it is. We make our way around to a small room, which was at the back of the private apartments. This room would be part of the latrine block, where 3 cubicles could drain into a ground floor chamber. In the outer wall of this chamber was a small door, which we entered through, allowing the contents to be cleaned out periodically. The door stands just above the moat, which makes you wonder if the latrine contents were simply just emptied out into the moat below. After the hall went out of use, it was incorporated as an ornamental feature within the grounds of the now demolished Weeting Hall. The site has a long history of use, from the 10th century until the late 18th century. And archaeological excavations at the southern end of the hall have discovered ditches, post holes and pottery that date back to the Saxon period, suggesting that a Saxon settlement existed here before the stone hall was built. Imagine if the castle had been totally demolished, just like Weeting Hall, and built on. We might know that it was there, but now with these ruins that we have, we're still able to see something and have something to visualise. Even if it's just a few flint stones, it still fires up the imagination so much more, and is a fantastic place to visit, and worth a trip when visiting Thetford and Norfolk. Weeting Castle's claim to fame is that it's the type of building which is a typical example of an East Anglian great house, in fact rarer than a castle. So that's it for this week, and we really hope that you've enjoyed our short explore here around Weeting Castle. If you did, please be sure to hit that like button, click on the notification bell, and why not click subscribe for more content. We want to say a big thank you to our Patreons for supporting us, and if you are interested in more ways to support us, then have a look in our description box for ways to be a part of the PIM family. So we'll see you in the next one. Till next time.